Just finding our way into a seat where we can be at ease. Spine get tall. Spine nice and tall. Find your way into a breath that is naturally supportive of the shape you're in. Think about those lateral adjustments that you can make, those tilts towards the posterior, towards the anterior to get more stacked and at ease in the spine. Maybe let your eyes close here. There's this kingdom that has just recently come under a new king. The king's gathered his inner circle to talk about any changes that they want to propose to the kingdom. We'll give ourselves just about 30 more seconds here. Think about what's going on with the interplay between the breath and the body. Maybe sync those two a little bit more intentionally. And eventually, we'll let the eyes open if they are closed, and let's sweep both arms up towards the ceiling so we get a nice big extension here. Think about that anterior neutrality, so we're not bowing out in the belly, but we're just really reaching vertically, and then turn your palms towards the front of the room. We'll just drop the elbows out to cactus. As you get to that place where the triceps parallel with the floor, squeeze the elbows back just slightly. Try to open up that anterior shoulder sheath. And think about what's going on with the cervical spine. You can see I wanted to tuck there. Think about staying neutral in the cervical spine. And then relax the hands together. Let's interlace the fingers and push the palms away from us. If the palms away from you doesn't feel good on your shoulders, do palms towards you. And here, think about rounding the shoulders forward. So we're kind of like pulling the lateral edges of the scapula out and tucking those medial edges in. And then relax that and just walk yourself out into a little seated fold. Just enough to check in with the lumbar. And we'll walk ourselves back to vertical. And let's adjust to hands and knees tabletop. Fling those fingers out and think about how the spine feels here. How that articulation of the spine feels towards the posterior, towards the anterior, and also towards those lateral edges. And then with the kind of balanced awareness of the weight distribution at all four corners, so the knees and both hands, maintain that sense of stability as you send your left leg straight back and behind you. Left toes pointed straight down towards the floor. And really think about our weight distribution and how balanced we are at our 3 contact points now. And then release that left leg. Make sure you rebalance the weight distribution before you send the right leg straight back. And point those toes straight down. Really want to be balanced here. And then we'll bring that right knee back in line with the left. Curl your toes underneath you and roll back into down dog. Nice flat neutral spine. Engagement across the finger mounds and fingertips. Come down to hands and knees. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. As you come back into child's pose, almost break the torso up into three sections. That lumbar section, that transverse section between the lumbar and thoracic, and then the thoracic. And think about where you're getting the most feedback. Are we getting the most feedback in the low back, in the mid back, or the upper back? And then just use the exhale half of your respiration to see if you can relax that engagement. Let's give ourselves 10 more seconds here. When it's appropriate, we'll pull ourselves back to tabletop, rebalance the weight distribution, and really feel how the weight is balanced between your hands and your knees. Think about that as a real center point of awareness, and then curl your toes and roll back into down dog and get enough weight back into the hips that we can recreate that idea of balanced weight distribution between the hands and the feet. So if that doesn't feel possible, just keep bending the knees until the hips are far enough back that the weight is shifting into the toe mounds. And then we'll walk to the front of the mat. And inhale into half lift. And then exhale back into fold. Let yourself go enough in the fold that you feel the lower half of the posterior chain activate. So thinking about the hamstrings starting to speak to us. If they're not, hands can slide behind us and we can give ourselves a little bit more torso proximity to our shins. And then we'll drift our awareness from our torso, from that hamstring expansion to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up, eventually stacking the skull on top of that spinal column and bringing the hands together, heart center. I'm just settling into your mountain here. Think about the necessary engagement in the quads and glutes, and then we'll slide our left foot straight back and into lunge. As we come into our lunge space, balance the weight distribution. Think about the activity in that left quad, no bend in the left knee, and then find your way into the fluidity of your breath. And then when it feels appropriate, let's just step the left foot back to the front of the mat, where we can be at ease in our mountain again. Glute quad engagement enough to restabilize. And then when it's appropriate, right foot slides straight back. As the right foot lands, we develop our anchor again between the front and back foot, our stability between the front and back foot. Think about that anterior posterior neutrality, strength in the right quad, straight right knee, stable breath. And then we'll step the right foot to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms straight up, palms facing towards one another. And then turn the palms towards the front of the room and open the arms up towards cactus. When the tricep is parallel with the floor, squeeze the elbows back. Don't lose that net neutrality front and back of the body. And then bring your elbows and palms together in front of you. And we're going to take a fold where we're trying to tuck our elbows in between our thighs. Fingers point roughly down towards the floor, right? As towards the floor as we can get them. And then we release the hands down. Press across those fingertips, and we'll walk our way back into down dog. And then let's come down to tabletop. Take the left leg and extend it straight back and behind you. Toes point straight down, and then right arm's going to extend towards the front of our room. Looking for some anterior expansion here. And then let the right hand return, left knee return. I will do same thing to the second side. Right foot is back, toes straight down. Left arm extends forward. Nice vertical line. And then left hand comes down, right knee. Curl your toes, lift your seat back into down dog. Get that weight back into the hips. Try to use that extra space around the shoulder girdle to drive back into that length. And let's come down to hands and knees. Tabletop, we'll flip the tops of the feet and sink into child's pose. Once again here, as we settle, think about breaking the torso up into thirds. You have that lumbar section, that lumbar thoracic section, and that thoracic section. Think about what area of the back might be experiencing the most sensation. And then think about how you can alleviate that sensation with the exhale side of your breath. We'll give ourselves just 10 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull our way back into tabletop. Rebalance that weight distribution. And then we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and re-find our version of down dog. Once you've entered the full depth, let's walk to the front of the mat. We'll inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Lift your awareness to your sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Once again, finding our way to mountain. Bring your hands together, heart center, stabilizing the weight distribution between the toe mounds and the heels, stacking the spinal column, and then letting the skull rest upon that spinal column stack. And then slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Establishing that same lunge position before we ground our left heel and roll into two. Blossom those arms out. Think about the shoulders stacking over the hips, getting nice and wide here. And then bring your hands together at heart center. The hands settle at heart center. Draw back into the right hamstring. So shoulders stay squared. I'm going to over-exaggerate that a little bit because it doesn't look like they're squared because of my screen angle. And then rebend the front knee and re-blossom into two. Spin your left heel up and sweep the arms up, crescent. Remember, no bend in that back knee. We're straight and strong in that back leg. And then drop the hands and we'll step to the front of the mat. Finding the ease and fluidity within our breath. Thinking about the toe mount heel weight distribution balance. And then as it feels appropriate for you, let's take our right foot straight back. We'll find our way into lunge. And then we'll ground that and blossom into our warrior two. Good spinal column stack here. Good width across the shoulder girdle. Bring your hands to heart center and slide back into that left hamstring. So a little bit of activation on that front leg. Then we'll blossom back out into 2. Good width in the hips. Spin the right heel up, find full crescent. You got the strength in that back leg. And we'll drop the hands and return to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Turn your palms towards the front of the room and exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk back into down dog. Shift forward to plank and lower yourself to your belly. Slide the elbows forward so that the elbows can line up directly underneath the shoulders, palms, hands down, a little Sphinx pose here. The compression in your lumbar is really dictated by the height of your head, right? So if you're feeling like you are creating compression in the lumbar, we want to lower the head until we feel like we're expanding the lumbar. So think about the appropriate head placement for your benefit here. And then once you get the head positioning and the lumbar feels safe, start to play with a glute and quad squeeze to see how that impacts the depth of the shape. Same time, we want to remember our full capacity to breathe and be easy here. And so this king and his collection of advisors start to talk about what would make the biggest impact. And they start to kind of hone in on some things. They feel like there's too much negativity in the kingdom, too much criticism. And they keep talking about these points and what would be the best way to address them. We'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's release ourselves down to a little crocodile, stacked hands, forehead rests. Think about the cervical spine being set into a place where it can expand. We'll slide our hands back underneath our shoulders and press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From your hands and knees tabletop, let's take our left foot, sit it straight back and behind us, toes pointed straight down, and then take your right hand and reach that straight out towards the front of the room. Thumb up, thinking about the anterior expansion here, this bilateral expansion. And then we'll let the right hand and left knee come down and take that to the second side. Right leg sends straight back, left arm straight forward. Toes are straight down. Good is long length here. And then left hand down, right knee down, curl your toes, lift your seat, down dog. Let's walk our way to the front of the mat. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left heel. And sweep straight up into warrior one. Think about the hips and shoulders pointing straight forward. Kind of that top corner of the ilium, mirroring the corners of the shoulders. And then bring your hands to heart center. And we'll roll the torso for a warrior two torso alignment. And then slide back into your right hamstring. And then we're gonna roll back and then bend that front knee and fully express two. Warrior one, excuse me. Then we'll fully express two and then slide back. And then right hand's coming down towards that medial edge, inside edge, the right foot for a little triangle. Good, long lateral line. Draw the left oblique back up into two as you bend that front knee. And then spin the left heel up. We'll find crescent. Drop the hands to the mat and we'll step the left foot forward. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Right foot slides straight back. Right heel grounds. And we'll sweep up into warrior one. Good, strong front leg. Drop the hands to heart center and turn the torso. And then slide back into that front hamstring. Think about activating that lower posterior chain. Then we'll turn the torso. Rebend the knee. Fully express warrior one. Then roll to full expression of warrior two. Slide back into the left hamstring. Drop the left hand medial edge for a little triangle. When it feels appropriate, right oblique draws you back up. We'll bend the front knee for two. Then right heel spins up, crescent. Flip the hands down to the mat, and we'll step forward. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Roll or sweep to mountain. Hands to heart center. When it feels appropriate, slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Keep your hands at heart center, ground your left heel, roll the torso. Slide back into your right hamstring and then tilt your torso towards what would be triangle if we extend it out. Little modified triangle here. And think about that width across the shoulder girdle. See if I can make that look better. And then we'll draw ourselves back up. Turn, keeping that front leg as straight as and active as possible, turning the torso, fully expressing those arms towards the ceiling, and then reaching out towards the front of our room. Drop the hands all the way to the mat, and then step your left foot forward to mirror the right. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep or roll to mountain. Hands at heart center. Find your way back into that fluid, easy respiration. And then right foot slides straight back. Ground the right heel, keep that hands at heart center. So you roll open, slide back into the left hamstring, and tilt the torso. Good wide shoulder width here. Good lateral line. Draw yourself back up, turn the torso, sweep those arms up, and then extend towards the front of your room. Think about that long expansion on that posterior chain left side. Hands drop to the mat, and we'll step the right foot. To mirror the left. Inhale into half lift, and exhale into all that space in the hamstrings. Sweep yourself or roll yourself up in a mountain. Hands coming together at heart center. Breath here. Think the seat towards chair. Now the hamstrings have a little fatigue in them, so they may fight against this. And then rise straight back up. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk to down dog. Come down to tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink into child's pose. Just an easy fluid breath here. So this group of advisors talk about lots of ways they can start to remove the negativity, the criticisms within the kingdom. And they settle on what is a fairly controversial plan. The plan is to remove each and every mirror that exists within the kingdom. The kingdom had always been full of vibrant clothing and art and culture. And there was some talk about how removing the mirrors may diminish that. But it was pushed back against. And the decision was made. Each and every mirror would be removed. Last 10 seconds here. And when it's appropriate, let's pull back to tabletop. Take your left foot and extend it straight back and behind you. And then ground that left toe mound. And as the left toe mound connects, use that as your strength base and just roll back into this little modified down dog. So that left foot is back, the right foot is kind of midway forward, and we'll just slide the right foot all the way forward and into lunge. That's a big ask. And then we'll sweep ourselves up into crescent. Settle in there. And then float the hands down on the mat. And as you do that, wiggle that left foot back just a little bit further into your shape, and then we'll sweep ourselves up into crescent. And then float the hands down on the mat, and we'll step the left foot forward to mirror the right. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide the left foot back once again, and sweep yourself back up once again into crescent. Float the hands down on the mat, and then wiggle that left foot back once again, and sweep yourself up into a final crescent. Float the hands down on the mat. Step the right foot back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Little asymmetry available in this child's pose, right? That was a lot of unilateral work. So as you get here, think about balancing the weight distribution between the left and right foot. Think about smoothing out and returning your respiration more towards a homeostatic ease. We'll give ourselves just 10 more seconds here. And when it's appropriate, we'll pull forward to tabletop. Let's balance this all out. Right foot extends straight back. And then right foot comes down and we settle that right toe mound, then roll back into this modified version of down dog. Get that weight into the right toe mound and use that to slide the left foot forward. And then we'll sweep ourselves up into crescent. Float the hands down on the mat. Wiggle that right foot back just a little bit further. And then sweep up into crescent. Big crescent here. Float the hands to the mat and we'll step the right foot forward. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your right foot straight back. Sweep your way up into crescent. Think about all the space that's available here, that anterior hip space. Drop the hands to the mat and wiggle that right foot back. Sweep yourself up into crescent. Think about that anterior hip space, that strength in your right leg. Put the hands down on the mat, step the left foot back into down dog. Get the weight all the way back into the hips. Shift and elevate. Come down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet. And sink back into child's pose. So we should have some more bilateral balance, right? We should be more even across the sacrum, across the hip girdle. Can you really tune in to the rate of respiration here? Can we really find our way into that fluid easiness? We'll give ourselves just 20 more seconds here. Really thinking about the breath, smoothing out. And then we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop and sweep the legs through so we can find staff. And now we should have some relative openness in the posterior chain, right? We're pretty posterior chain driven. Let's find staff, find the verticality of the spine, sweep the arms into that space, and then exhale forward into fold. Remember that as we get into our fold, we can be more and more communicative with our breath so that the rate of respiration starts to slow further and further down. And as you are getting deeper and deeper into the shape through the utilization of your breath, think about where the sensations are manifesting. Relax those areas with the exhale. and nourish them with the inhale. Try to send the breath to where you're feeling restrictiveness in the body. Give ourselves just another 30 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, let's walk ourselves back up towards feet. Bend our left knee. Tuck that left heel down so we can get that left foot as flat as is possible. Left hand behind you. And then right tricep over to that left thigh. And let's really think about finding a rotation here. The left arm is providing stability and structural length for the torso. Breath maintains its importance here as we rotate. And then let's come back to neutral. We'll extend that left leg out. Think about how the spine is sitting within the body. Be at ease in your breath. And let's take this over to side two. Right knee bends, right foot is flat, right hand behind us, left tricep to the right thigh. And we really play on our capacity to rotate while being structurally elongated by that right arm. Breath is fluid and easy. And eventually we'll come back to neutral. One more time, let's just find our way forward into a fold. This will not be a long visit, but just enough to kind of see how the body has shifted, changed, responded to the offering here. Last 30 seconds. And then we'll bring ourselves up towards vertical and then head onto our backs. Let your body settle here. Think about how the mat or floor is supporting your spine. And just take a moment to integrate with the support of neutrality. Feels appropriate. Let's heel to our feet out towards the width of the mat and let both knees fall over to the left. So here the right knee is roughly pointed towards the arch of the left foot. And then inhale back to neutral. And then we'll do the same thing to the second side. So that left knee now points towards the arch of the right foot. And then inhale back to neutral and over towards the left. And inhale back to neutral and over towards the right. inhale to neutral and over towards the left. And here, let's settle in for a little static twist. So a little more time to deepen the connection with this shape, tuning into the releasing slash expanding capacity of the exhale side of our breath. At first, of course, there was some dissent. People had reluctancy to give up their mirrors. They worried that they wouldn't know what they looked like when they went out in public. Our business is worried that people wouldn't be willing to purchase their wares if they couldn't see themselves in them. The king and his advisors stayed strong and true to their desire. They ensured the people that without mirrors, they wouldn't be so worried about their imperfections. They'd be happier, more content. And so one by one, the mirrors were brought to the castle and destroyed until every last mirror in the kingdom had been removed. And the king and his advisors were right. People were less worried about their appearance. They were less concerned about themselves. Maybe even happier. As time went on, people became more and more accustomed to being less reflective. With the next inhale, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Heel toe the feet together and let the bottoms of the feet press into one another as the knees fall out wide. With the less reflectiveness came homogenizing of culture, of art, of fashion. And that was the way the entirety of the kingdom was when a outside traveler stumbled upon it almost accidentally. We'll bring our knees back to neutral and then heel toe the feet out to the width of the mat and let the knees fall over towards the right for a little static twist here. That left knee is roughly at the arch of the right foot. On this outsider kind of watched in amusement as everyone he interacted with kind of existed in this homogenized way. After some time in the kingdom, he realized mirrors didn't exist here. Not that they were rare, and so that there wasn't a single one anywhere. And so he found this broken shard of glass and this little scrap of tinfoil. And he started to wrap the glass in tinfoil and then very carefully smooth and polish the tinfoil into the glass. This was a process that wasn't minutes or hours. This was a process that was days running into weeks. Smoothing this tinfoil ever so delicately so that it pressed into this glass and became more and more reflective. Really thinking about the resistance points within the body and how you can become more and more at ease with the shape that you are in and the cycle of breath that is nourishing you. We'll give ourselves about 40 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Settle back in so that the entirety of the body can rest against this neutrality. And then ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, that you might need, that you could benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything that you possibly need, let's settle into a shape where we can appreciate the stillness of Shavasana. let's just be at ease. Eventually, when this traveler had this makeshift mirror that he created, he would take it up people in the kingdom, hold it up to them, and they would always have nearly an identical response. Is that really what I look like? Have we always looked like this? Just finding your way into a breath that nourishes the stillness. No matter how many people he gave the opportunity to see a reflection, he got the same response. Was that really what I look like? Have I always looked like this? And he would always respond the same way. It's not your face that's changed, it's your mind. And for some reason, that response seemed to snap people out of something. Almost instantaneously, they began to wonder, to question. They started to realize that it wasn't an absence of mirrors that had changed them. It was a loss of introspection. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, and to our wrists and our ankles. Up into our elbows and our knees, through our shoulders and hips, neck and head. Eventually, the entirety of the body will move, and we'll utilize that movement to find our way into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. Think about the adjustments and alignment of the spinal column. Let the skull rest upon that spinal column stack. And let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that a world without reflection is not free of flaws? It's simply blind to them. See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday. I just love you guys so much. I appreciate the heck out of you being here. I'll be back on Sunday to do a recharge. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful week. Mwah.